welcome back to our channel. So if you haven't liked and share and subscribe, please do so on our YouTube. We're on YouTube, Facebook. We do some things on Instagram. We're not like, that tech savvy for that yet, but we do a little something. But like, share, and subscribe on our pages. If you haven't had an opportunity to watch some of our videos, please go on YouTube and like them, share them. If you can, go on all the videos and like them for us, please. That would be great. So I'm your co-host, Nikki Grant, or Nanique Pierre Grant, however you want it, however you remember me. And I'm one of your co-hosts of Race and the Races. And as we advertise, we have a great representative here to give us a wrap up for the legislation of the grueling session up in Tallahassee. So I'm going to send it over to my co-host Sandra, and then she will introduce our wonderful guest.
So I was trying to do some technical stuff right now. I'm going to do that in a minute. Yeah, so I'm Sandra Sheffer. So we're here today, but it's not about us today. It's really about Representative Benjamin. He represents district, I think it's 107. Right. And, we used to know the maps, but the maps keep changing. So we can't tell you exactly what that incorporates, but he'll be able to explain that. Because I know some parts of Miami Gardens, maybe some part of unincorporated Miami-Dade, but he'll get into that. But one of the reasons why we thought it was important to have a legislative wrap up is because there was a lot of bad legislation, at least in my opinion, a lot of very bad legislation that came out of Tallahassee this session, partly because there was a super majority. So the Republicans were able to pretty much do whatever it is that they wanted to do. And then, the governor is running for president. So he thinks a campaign of hate is what's going to help him win. So he pretty much was, or hate, fear mongering, whatever you want to call it. So he pretty much was starting that in Florida to see what that's going to look like. But there's a lot of things that are going to be happening. I think he's going to see the pushback. I don't know what kind of adjustments he's going to make, but most of these laws are going into effect July the 1st. So we wanted to have someone come, we wanted to have Representative Benjamin come in, tell you just like, I usually, we like to say highlights, but it's a whole bunch of lowlights. So he's going to tell you the lowlights about what happened and how you should prepare yourself and what it is that we need to be cognizant of effective July the 1st. Okay. So that's all I'm going to say. He can clearly represent himself because he's an attorney like me and he's not short for words. So go ahead. Thank you, Rep. Benjamin, for spending this time with us this evening.
Thank you guys for having me. Nikki, Sandra, it is definitely an honor to be here on the show this evening to speak about what legislations passed during this session. And I know I don't want to be too pessimistic. This evening, there were some highlights and there are, of course, some lowlights. But I am here to clear up any issues and talk about the issues that we faced in this particular session. I am part of the minority party in Tallahassee. I believe we're down now to 25 Democrats out of 120. Representatives in the Florida House. So it is just it can be discouraging at times. But so I'm gonna start off by making an observation that's not often made when we talk about what we do in Tallahassee. We spend 60 days in Tallahassee, and as you guys know, our charge pursuant to the Constitution is to pass a balanced budget. That's what your representatives are sent to Tallahassee to do pursuant to our Constitution. Luckily for us, that while we're there, we're able to do some policy issues and write some bills and make some laws as well. Being a representative, we only get 7 policy bills to pass each session or to introduce to the legislation. Our Senate, they like to call themselves the upper chamber. They have an unlimited amount of policy bills that they can pass. And then both houses or chambers have an unlimited amount of appropriations, those money bills, our attempts to bring money back to our community. We have an unlimited amount of opportunities to sponsor those types of legislation. All right, so that's the parameters of what it is to be a state legislature. Now, 7 ain't a whole lot of bills, to address issues that we see in our communities. But between the 25 of us, we try to make an impact in our community. And we try to ward off the bad bills, or we try to make those bad bills better because we don't have the numbers to keep them from passing, at least not in the House. In the Senate, they have their numbers are closer, but this session, the Senate also faced a super minority. So super minority in both chambers pretty much allows the Republican Party to pass whatever bills that they want to pass. And so when we pass bills or we introduce amendments that are actually adopted, it's because of the relationships that we forged on the other side of the aisle. And some of us were able to do that this session and pass really good bills for the benefit of our community. And unfortunately, we weren't able to stop those bills that we believe were bad for our community, but we were able to speak out on it and hopefully activate our community and our resistance to those bills.
So I have a question, Representative Benjamin. What committees were you assigned to this session?
I was assigned to insurance and banking. I was assigned to education appropriations, higher education appropriations, where I served as the ranking Democratic member. I was on the another education committee with regards to secondary education, where I also served as the ranking Democratic member. I said insurance and banking, right? And I was on what is it? Another policy committee that eludes me for some reason right now, but I was on about 5 committees.
So the insurance and banking, as you know, we're quite concerned about the insurance companies and what some of these bills have allowed the insurance companies to basically do now. Are you familiar with some of those bills? And if you can explain it a little bit, and how it directly affects homeowners and those who have to do their car insurance and all that.
Well, there was a number of bills over the last 2 sessions that dealt with our insurance, and they dealt with insurance in terms of our property insurance under the auspices that we needed to stem the tide of insurance companies that were going insolvent in our state and those insurance companies that were leaving our state. And they put it on the back of, or under the premise that it was a litigation that Florida was one of the number 1 states with regards to litigation on the property insurance claims. And so they called for a reform of our insurance climate here in the state of Florida. And so one of the things that was going on is that what they call one-way attorney's fees, so that if an attorney who's representing a plaintiff in a dispute against their insurance company, if they were to win that particular claim, then the insurance company would have to pay their attorney's fees. But there was no obligation on the other side, at least not in statute. There was no obligation on the other side that if the insurance company won, that the other side had to pay their attorney's fees and costs. And that existed for good reason. A lot of people say, it wasn't fair. It was a source of why we had so much litigation. That litigation was being driven by attorneys and property adjusters, and that is why we had so much litigation. But there was such an unequal footing between an insured and their insurer that in legislation at some point we thought it was beneficial to ensure that the consumer had an advocate that could go up against the insurance companies, because we knew that they had almost unlimited resources to fight these claims from their consumers. And so what has happened now is that insurance companies kept complaining, insurance companies kept leaving the state. So last session, not this session that we just had, but the previous session that we had, we decided, okay, no more one-way attorney's fees. Basically, everybody has to bear the cost of their attorneys. And of course, we fought against that and trying to get them to change their mind on that. But ultimately, the majority of us believe that something had to be done in terms of changing the climate in our state, or no one would be able to get property insurance. You would have that forced place stuff that it covers nothing and costs you an arm and a leg.
But Okay, so Sandra and I, we can agree. And unmute yourself, Sandra.
I'm trying to understand how that made my insurance go up $10,000 in 2 years. That's
I want to know.
I'm like,
I went up just as amount.
I like what you said. You know what I'm saying?
I can tell you, I can tell you that because mine doubled as well. So
you know, like I'm like,
we drowning over here. We like literally drowning over here with the insurance costs. Like so,
and what they're saying is, and what a lot of experts have said, it is just a culmination of almost what one would consider a perfect storm, and that is the cost of goods have gone up, the cost of what it takes to repair properties have gone up. Claims are up, so the cost of litigation is up, and everything that's
Florida, the hurricane capital of the world. I'm so confused. Was that not factored in?
No, I mean to a certain extent, yes. We pay higher insurance than other states in the union in general because we are basically a hurricane state. I think the only state that probably pays more than us, or states that pay more than us, are like California because of their
fires and earthquakes and landslides, and you name it.
Yeah, exactly. But in terms of they kept citing, although I really saw no proof of it, that we were the number one state when it came to litigation for roof repair.
Mm-hmm.
That those claims, we were the number. We had more claims than any other state combined in our.
But I think that goes to Representative Benjamin. I think that goes to when you file a claim to get your roof repaired, you're automatically denied by the insurance company. Then you do your, I think there's a process that you go by to resubmit. Then that's denied. So at that point, now you have to file an attorney to file a lawsuit so you can get your roof repaired. So so my question becomes, did the legislature look at these litigations and I'm not saying to look at them by case basis, but to see the general gist of why Florida homeowners are filing lawsuits to get their roofs fixed?
Okay, so just so you guys know, I've been a mediator. In addition to being an attorney for over 20 years, I've been a mediator for over 15. And over the last decade, the largest part of my mediation practice has been property insurance claims, right? And so what the legislature did know is that, and I try to be a balanced person in my approach to stuff. There's fraud. There is absolute fraud, claims fraud in our state.
This South Florida, this Miami, is every kind of fraud.
Exactly.
It's fraud everywhere.
Exactly. There's absolute claim fraud in our state, and that claim fraud affects what we pay in insurance. Because if you have to pay out claims that you shouldn't have had to pay out, that's going to affect the cost of insurance in our particular state. Now, insurance is very complicated, guys. I'm going to tell you, because, and I'm in the business to say, but you have these things called reinsurance, which is the insurance that insurers pay to make sure that they're able to pay claims when claims come due as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Now, the cost of reinsurance has skyrocketed for insurance carriers.
But, so to me, right, that sounds like it ain't my fault you can't figure out who trying to cheat you out your money. Why is it that I'm bearing the cost, right? Like if you in business, right, you supposed to be in the business of figuring out the con game. And because you're not good at figuring out the con game, why you got me paying more money? Like,
why is that my problem?
Because the person who had the fraudulent claim got their claim paid. And those of us that truly had a problem, we out here stuck like Chuck. And then, we got $10,000 in 2 years.
Listen, so to be fair, some folks who really needed a claim paid got paid. And some folks who shouldn't have gotten paid got paid. And when we pay more than, even when we settle, the insurance company says, like, even when we settle our claims, meaning we don't go to court, that money, that settlement costs us money, which therefore we pass on to consumers.
I'm just saying, y'all need to be
welcome
talking
to America. We pass on the cost to our consumers.
y'all need to be dealing with these adjusters is out here making these false claims. Y'all need to be like, I mean, there has to be
so they did. So adjusters are a big reason for a lot of the reform as well. And so we had this thing called an assignment of benefits. So a person comes in and provides you service because of a claim. They provide service on that claim. Then they get an authorization from you to deal with your insurance carrier on behalf of you for the work that they did, right? Mm-hmm. And in doing that, they go to the insurance carrier and they file claims, and they even file lawsuits themselves in order to get paid for their services,
for all kind of stuff,
which are typically high for what they're doing. They're saying like, okay, for instance, they know you only have $10,000 worth of mold insurance coverage, but they'll come to the insurance carrier with a $20,000 bill.
Oh yeah. And then they're gonna have fans, blowers in your house to like people to come and take it out. So I didn't have a roof claim, but I did have like some pipe burst in my house or something like that. And you're right, the adjuster came. He said, "Oh, you need content people." I'm like, "What's that?" He said, "Oh yeah, we're gonna have a content person." He done called like 10 of his friends to come to my house. I'm like, "What y'all doing here? I don't know what y'all want. I just need the plumber to stop the leak." And then and then I found out like once they break the floor, they got to replace the whole floor. I'm like, for what? Right. And I was telling the insurance company, like, no, just patch a little section. Let me go on about my business because I don't want contractors in my house. So some of that is the insurance company's fault. Because I told them the leak was in a room that nobody could see. So I'm like, just cover that up, bro. I'm Haitian. Yeah. We good. We ain't got to take up the whole floor.
Right. So this session, we stopped that. There's no more assignment of benefits. You can no longer assign your benefits after July 1st. You won't be able to do that. So we took away that market for adjusters. So there's no longer that. So by taking away one-way attorney's fees and by taking away assignment of benefits, what they are hoping is that this will curtail the amount of litigation that we have in our state. And by curtailing that litigation, we will have more insurers come back to the state, and then competition breeds lower pricing and things of that nature. So that is.
Do you think my insurance gonna go down next year? Because if I'm applying for a job in Texas because I'm like,
that's why I voted no. And that's why I voted no on some of these subsequent legislation we had involving the insurance industry. Is because my thing is when we came in special session to deal with the insurance, it was about reform in the hopes of bringing people back to our state, breeding competition, and hoping to drive down pricing in that regard. Then the insurance companies came and said, we need some more help. And we came back and we gave more help in another special session.
What kind of help? What help they need?
With again, with the litigation, it was always about, what's happening with litigation. And so this time when they said, listen, we want to create some more basically benefits or entitlements for the insurance company, I said, wait a minute. We've given immediate relief to the insurance companies, meaning the things that they complain about, we've given them relief that they can see today. What relief are we going to give the consumers, the constituents, the property owners? What relief are we going to give them that they can see today? And it's just astonishing that my colleagues on the other side were able to take the floor and said none.
I'm just so confused as to why we can't make legislations that's mutually beneficial for everybody. And I understand that this is an industry, but we drowning over here. Like I don't how do the constituents, those who vote on a regular basis, not get some relief? It literally is killing people to pay these insurance raises. Like you talked about yours double and Sandra said hers double. Mine tripled. Wow. It's killing me. And I just don't understand how the other side,
imagine, I argue for, and a lot of people argue for the seniors. Imagine that you're a senior.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. On a limited income.
Absolutely.
I may be able to absorb $1,000 raise in my housing costs.
Right.
But that senior who's on a limited income and they can't take that hit. And one of the most disappointing things is that when we were looking for other avenues of relief, like raising their exemptions on their property taxes and things of that nature, you know, we have folks telling us no.
Yeah.
You know?
No, because my mom is one of those people on a fixed income. She between her hazard and flood and wind and the taxes, it's literally more than all of what she collects from.
I mean, come on, they passed a bill that they passed a bill during special session that said even if you lived in a condo on the 20th floor, you had to have flood insurance if you want citizens. only to come back the next session and be like, okay, we messed up. Maybe that
was team too much.
It's a tomfoolery to me. Okay. It is a tomfoolery.
All right, so your frat brother here, Mr. Johnson, has a comment in the chat. I'll bring that up after we talk a little bit about SB 1718. That's the one that's having a lot of, people are leaving the states for all different types of reasons. Yep. I'm in the immigration law space, and that's the immigration bill that the governor was talking about and the Senate decided to pass. Can you summarize that bill a little bit for us? Tell us where the light at in that one. If there
is no light in that one.
Oh, that one has no light. Okay, that's what I thought. But okay,
summarize it. That one has no light.
There is no light in that one because it's built upon a farce, and the farce is that somehow these immigrants that are coming over to our country are costing us jobs or are more dangerous than the people that we have that are citizens here, or they're bringing the drugs over into our state. First of all, we're not a border state like that. And this law allows what the governor did with a group of immigrants by taking them from Texas and sending them over to Martha's Vineyard. So
with our money,
isn't he responsible?
With our money, 10 million.
In California too, right? Like recently.
So recently, because they passed the law that said, listen, that program that we did the first time was kind of shady. Let's fix that up this time. Let's make it official. Like he's allowed to do this now. So even if you thought it was a little shaky or a little fishy last time, we're going to actually give him the authority and the money in the budget to ship people who we don't know whether they intend to come to Florida or not. But to make sure they don't come to Florida, we're going to go to other states and ship them away from Florida.
So let me just highlight to everybody. These are the candidates and people that you voted in that basically made a decision that they don't care about you and what's going on in your state, that we're going to take money and go into other people's business and other people's states and do what we want.
Yeah,
these are the people you voted for. That's
just one aspect. Not us, not me.
That was just one aspect of the bill. Another aspect of the bill said that if you transport anybody into the state of Florida, then you would be subject to criminal prosecution for doing that. And so, and originally the bill said if you were transporting them around the state, that you would be subject. So that, that brought up, well, what about family members? And what about religious institutions? And what about charitable institutions? What about all these businesses and charities that are already set up?
Sports team at the high schools.
Right. And so they took that portion out. And they said, well, if we catch y'all coming in the state, we're going to get y'all. But y'all can travel. If y'all already here, y'all can travel about the state. But we made sure that they can't get a driver's license. They can't get an ID.
They already couldn't get a driver's license. My understanding is that if you got an out-of-state license, that now you can't. Your out-of-state driver's license means absolutely nothing in the state of Florida.
Right. So some counties in the state of Florida, Dade County, my county was one of them, where we issue IDs to undocumented immigrants. So this law now stops that. Dade County can't do that anymore. Nobody in the state of Florida can issue an ID to an undocumented immigrant. And as far as those states who have better immigration relations than we do, and who have decided that they would give their undocumented immigrants a driver's license, when they come to Florida, those driver's licenses are now invalid.
Isn't that in violation of the Constitution or something? What's the fair faith and credit or something of anything issued by?
But what we have seen is that we had a governor that's willing to, again, spend our money on what we will consider to be some frivolous lawsuits that we know violate the Constitution, but they do this in an attempt to do what they did to Roe v. Wade. We're going to challenge the established laws and the established constitutional principles, or how they've been interpreted. We're going to challenge how they've been interpreted by creating laws that we can then sue on, or we will be sued on, and we will defend against them.
And there's a question about, is there a healthcare component to that bill? I think what I understand is something about if you have Medicaid, if a hospital accepts Medicaid.
No, a hospital, period. Every hospital needs, when a person comes for treatment, are supposed to ask about the immigration status. Now they can't refuse service, but they are now being charged with asking about the immigration status, because if they are a public hospital and they're serving undocumented immigrants, they're saying, we want to know how much money the state of Florida is spending on healthcare services for undocumented immigrants.
But isn't that also not accurate, because that Medicaid money is federal dollars and not state dollars? So the state of Florida really isn't spending any money on those folks?
It's a combination. We do spend some money in state money in the healthcare realm in terms of indigent folks. So the state of Florida does have one could argue that the state of Florida does have an interest in acquiring the information, but as long as we're not denying services. Because
that goes against the Hippocratic oath that the doctors take, right? So they're putting the doctors in a bind.
Right. So the doctors, and the problem is as you know, Sandra, it's the chilling effect of some things. Some things may be legal on their face, but they cause a chilling effect. So now immigrants are going to be less likely to go get medical treatment because they're afraid of what may be done with the data. No matter how much you and I may tell them, listen, it's just information. They're not going to do anything with the information. They're not calling ICE on you. They're just collecting data. If I'm in that situation, I'm not trusting that, especially not with the governor and the legislature that we have right now. I'm not trusting that. So yeah, I may not go and get services that I need. You know, what I'm telling people is what I would tell people. I said, refuse to give the information. They can't refuse you service. They can't refuse you service, so you can refuse the information and they still have to serve you.
Yeah. It's almost like you feel like it's like when you, and I hate to use this term, but it almost feels like that. It's like they ask you for your freedom papers. Like, you know, when you in slavery time, you're like, where's your papers? Where's your, it's to me, it's just like, you know, Sandra made a good point about federal dollars, Medicaid. I'm just trying to understand what is the legislation, the body. What is the main reason?
Biden. Their dislike of Biden's immigration policies. The dislike of the immigration policies. They feel like they said that the federal government's not moving on the issue of immigration, so it is incumbent then upon the state to do whatever it can to save off its residents from the hazards and the issues that come with undocumented, or as they say, illegal immigration. But I'm like, listen, guys, I argued on the floor. Listen, then your babysitters, your housekeepers,
the lawn man,
you know,
the one that's getting them oranges, apples, and fruits and strawberries for you.
All those folks, the construction workers, you know, all of these folks, you're going to disenfranchise them. And let's be honest, Americans are entitled. We don't like that type of labor. No, none of us feel like we should have to work that hard. And so we don't take
my back be hurting.
You know what I'm saying? Listen, farmers have said the average American is not set up to deal with this type of work.
That's be hot outside too.
They said they lose when they try to hire native-born Americans. They lose them left and right because they can't take the physical rigors of what it takes to do the job.
I have a brother that was on the roof for 45 minutes and he left. He walked off the job site.
they complain. You said it. You're right, Representative. They complain about self-checkout at Walmart. Like, wait, I'm not getting paid by Walmart to do self-checkout. They complain about that.
Right. I complain about that. I don't work here.
I did it today and I was mad. I had to get an extra cart because I couldn't figure out the dynamics of like how I put the carts back and all that stuff.
Me and my wife, we complain. I'm like, hey, somebody come and bag these groceries.
Oh on. Like now you want to get rid of all those people who come here and work
farmers
hard.
are pissed off. The farmers are pissed off because in that legislation, we have like either doubled or tripled the fine for employers. Yeah. So they're like, listen, not only are we facing additional fines, people are literally packing up and leaving. People are literally.
Did you see that mass exodus that they showed on the news? There was a mass exodus. Okay.
Yeah, they're leaving. They're leaving. I do some work in like the Belgrade area, and they're leaving. Like we have some of those nonprofit organizations that's calling, and they was like, yeah, 10 families left yesterday. 5 of them are leaving today. And they're like, we ain't even finna wait to hear what this is gonna be.
Right. Because listen, I came here so my kids can have a better life.
Yeah.
I came here escaping some type of persecution.
Yeah.
And I'll be damned if I get sent back prematurely or I get separated from my kids and my family because the state of Florida wants to prove something to the Biden administration.
At our expense.
At our expense.
So one other one that I want you to talk about is like these countries of foreign concerns and people not being able to buy property near naval bases and
listen, be careful.
What that mean?
President Biden just did as an executive order at the federal level doing something very similar.
What is all this happening?
The president said we don't want y'all buying no properties near our installations either. You know, these government installations, we don't want them buying properties over there either. And they're saying, listen, we have an issue with communist China. And they believe that what communist China is doing is that they're sending people over to the various states in our union, and they're buying up property. And some of the properties that they buy are near our military interests. Mm-hmm. And we're like, no, we're not going to do that. Listen, this caused a split in my caucus.
And so Florida added Venezuela, Cuba, and a couple other places, Syria, and they added a couple other countries. I wonder, you're from Miami-Dade County. How do people in Miami-Dade County feel about the fact that Cuba is on Cuba
and Venezuela?
I'm gonna tell you who's talked out the most is our Asian American residents. Our Asian American residents spoke out. They felt that they were going to be unfairly targeted. They weren't sure about how the law would be implemented as it relates to them and the various statuses that they may hold at different times. But from what I could see in the legislation, if you were a permanent resident, if you were a citizen of the United States, then this law really didn't affect you.
Interesting. Before you go on, I'd like you to talk a little bit because I think you co-sponsored this bill, HB 551.
No, that is my bill.
That's your bill. Okay, sir. Yes. So your bill. So give us a little bit of information on that. I think it deals with African American history. Just let the people know about that because that's another big issue for us, a big topic. So give us a little brief summary.
So in the previous session, in the 2022 session, the legislature passed HB 7, and HB 7 basically said that we would no longer take an interest in teaching critical race theory. And when that bill when that bill was introduced, I remember saying to my aide, we need to read this bill. We need to understand this bill, and we need to have an amendment. We need to be able to file an amendment to this bill to ensure that African American history isn't affected by a dispute about theories. In 1994, the legislature back then made it mandatory that African American studies be taught in the state of Florida. So we've had a statute since 1994 that made the teaching of African American history mandatory upon our 67 school districts. And I wanted to make sure that HB 7 didn't have a chilling effect with regards to teaching African American history. So I proffered some amendments back in 2022's legislative session that when we were done, in essence, had the effect because there was it's mandatory, but they make it so broad so that almost anything can pass as teaching a particular subject. Mm-hmm. For instance, ladies, women's history is required studies in the state of Florida. You know what the statute says about teaching women's history?
What does it say?
Teach women's history.
Oh,
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
One sentence.
Pick a lady, Amelia Earhart. We taught you. Our job is done.
Yep. You know what it says about Hispanic history?
What?
Teach Hispanic history.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a few more descriptive words in our sentence, and that just wasn't sufficient for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so the amendment that I did just kind of blew it out a little bit and said, there's a number of things that we want to ensure that you're teaching as it relates to African American history. And in that, they accepted it because I worked the amendment. I talked to the bill sponsor, and we agreed that we didn't want any confusion with regards to what Florida was doing with African American studies, and thus we expanded the teaching of African American studies for the first time in 20 years in the state of Florida. And so we did that in 2022, just in 2023 for an AP course to be offered in African American histories, and for the Department of Education's to reject that course because some of the offerings.
Well, the Florida Department of Education.
Florida Department of Education.
Okay.
Rejected the course because it had some offerings that they believe violated the statute created by HB 7. So I was like, well, here we go again. And so I went to some of our senior statesmen, and I said, well, we just expanded African American histories, and so I don't understand. They said, yeah, but
are you talking about old stuff, Rep. Benjamin? Are you talking about old stuff?
So what I said, listen, yeah, that's what they said basically. That was last session.
That was last session. You talking about old stuff?
I said, what else should we be doing? And they said, well, Chris, how do you know that they're teaching African American history? And let's say they decided that they're not going to teach it regardless of the statute. What then? Because none of that stuff is in statute. So that's what the elders told me. The elders in the state house told me. I said, okay, well, let's write a bill. Let's write a bill that says they got to prove it. You got to show and prove that you're teaching African American histories as mandated by the statute. And here's what happens if you should not teach it. Here are the penalties for it. Now, amazingly, being a state representative, we have access to every state agency in our government. And so we simply have to pick up the phone most times and to request information, and the information is given to us. So I called the chancellor of public schools and I said, how do we know that in the 67 school districts that they're actually teaching African American histories? He says, they have to report every year. We have a report. I'll send you the link where we have the report of who's teaching what and what resources they're teaching and all of that stuff. I said, yeah, but where's it at? I had to do like the elders. Where's it at in the statute? They was like, it's not. It's promulgated by our rules. We handle it by rules. And I was like, okay, show me those rules, and those rules will now become statute. And that's what we did. We made those rules statute so that they would never be lost, depending on who was promulgating rules. And so now they have every year the 67 school districts have to report about how they're teaching African American studies, the resources they're using to teach it, and how they can improve the teaching of African American studies in their district. And if they should fail to teach African American studies, they would have to report about how they're going to remedy that every month until it's remedied. And if they should fail to remedy it, then we will withhold funding for those school districts.
So who's in charge of enforcing to make sure they do that? So if someone's not in compliance, who does the enforcement side of that?
Well, the school districts, if they don't comply, the Department of Education is the oversight for it. Now, who polices it is probably a better question.
Okay.
So who polices that is us. We police it.
Okay.
We police it.
So just so we're clear, the Florida statute I read, and I had to read it and talk about it when I was making a presentation at the school board. I noticed that there is the Jewish Holocaust part on top. Mm-hmm. They have American history, and then they have African American history on the bottom. Mm-hmm. The Jewish part and the American history there was not language that was specified. But when you get to the African American history, there was so much specificity there. Almost, it was like a chokehold, to be quite honest. So while I respect the fact that you have broadened it out or whatever, are we looking further to see how we can change that? Because it talks about feelings, it talks about not making people feel uncomfortable, it's talking about, but that is only under the African American history of Florida statute.
No, it is in a sense, it is under the African American sense, in the sense that the original language talked about feelings. Mm-hmm. And of course, we had a big blowout about it's impossible to legislate how somebody feels or legislate how someone feels. So they what they did is instead said that you cannot teach, you cannot indoctrinate, you can't in teaching the information, you can't tell them how to feel.
Okay. That makes sense. All right. So now thank you. You've been talking to us for like 40 minutes. We hope you have just a little bit more, because we have a very important election year coming up in 2024. And your frat brother, I'm gonna go ahead and just read what he said, right? He said, what will be done to get the Florida Democratic Party to stop being so damn sorry and be aggressive in educating and motivating Black people to vote in historic numbers next year? To date, too many Black people are disgruntled with politics and apathetic about voting, but most are upset at the wrong people and for the wrong reasons. So what we gonna do to turn Florida blue?
And we talk about this all the time. I mean, up until the 90s, Florida was blue. Mm-hmm. Florida was blue up until the mid 90s.
Yeah, Lawton Child signed my law degree. Oh.
And it was a systematic approach that the Republicans took in switching over the state from blue to red. And we need to be as methodical as they were. We need to take a page from their book and start galvanizing our grassroots forces and really educating our constituency about the things that are happening in our state. One of my pet peeves is misinformation. And I think that we have to call out misinformation when it happens. And quite honestly, I don't like misinformation on either side. Because it breeds mistrust. Once people find out that what you gave them was not the right information, then they are no longer trusting the process. And if the average citizen can't trust our process, if they can't trust that an election is truly an election, and they can't trust that if you go to court, I'm really going to get a fair shake. If we begin to erode these trusts, then our democracy it will begin to wither. And so we got to come out with better messages. We got to come out with better messaging, and we have to be more aggressive. A lot of us in the caucus, a lot of folks in the caucus, I'm going to say us, but a lot of folks in the caucus, we come into an era where we say, listen, we got to bring back something to our community, and the governor holds the pen, to the veto pen, and we have something very unique in the state of Florida that our president doesn't even have. In the state of Florida, we have line item vetoes. A Florida governor doesn't have to veto a whole swath of legislation to get to the people he doesn't like. Whereas in our federal government, if you don't like the pork that's been what they call the pork that's been added onto a legislation, he gotta veto that entire piece.
I will, yeah.
In the state of Florida, the governor can go straight to the pork and be like, nope. And so if you got a project for your community that's in the budget and you want to keep those $100,000, $500,000, $1 million, $2 million that you have for your particular community, you want to make sure that they stay in the budget. And so some of us won't argue directly to the governor. Some of us won't take some stance that other folks will. And it is because then as a caucus, the leadership of the caucus, the Democratic caucus, says, I have to contend with all types of members. You have members who want to fight on every issue, and you have members who saying will fight on some issues and not other issues, and you have members that are saying, listen, I just want my money to get to my community.
As I know the governor petty And he also, he's petty. Because I know he's petty.
Right.
And I can't mess with petty people today, okay?
Right. You know,
and his petty be on 1,000, honey.
He's
the capital P in petty.
But I was talking to some well-known former state reps whose advice was, you just got to bite the bullet. The caucus has to bite the bullet and fight.
Yep.
If that means fighting on every issue, and if that means nobody takes home any money, then nobody takes home any money. He says, but at least the people will feel like something is happening. Like in our legislation, we have a thing where you can take the other side to what they call the board. So we file these amendments to these bills, and they say no. It's a voice vote. No, yay. Say no. 5 hands, and now we got to vote on it so that people see the people and how they voted. It's like we need to do that more. Mm-hmm. We're gonna have to do more of that. We tell them, and the problem is that we tell them when we're gonna go to the board, so they're prepared for it. You know.
But I think you made a key point, Rep. Benjamin, is when you said that when people see you fight, and they see that you're out there as a bite the bullet as a caucus and see that you're fighting. I think that it gives people at home and your constituents that the optics of, hey, I'm out here fighting for you, so I need you to come out here.
But it's the reality that they're actually fighting, right? Because it looks better if you're fighting and lose than if you just sat back there and lost. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, there's a big difference. And then if they see that aggression, they see that, that fortitude, that intentionality of the group of coming together and saying, hey, no matter, we just not gonna bring the money home, but this is you're not gonna be playing with us. We want all the smoke today. I think that will have people to want to.
And from a theory standpoint, and from my standpoint, I don't have an issue with that. But what some people say is, listen, I gotta come back. I gotta get elected. And if I don't bring something home for my community ain't trying to hear that. My community is like, where's the money? And I was like, no, we ain't have time for money this session. We was fighting for y'all. No. The community center needs $1 million. Mm-hmm. Where's the money?
But I think I understand that part too. However, I do think we got to be a little bit more creative about how we get money into the community, right? I'm one of those people. I got a whole bunch of boycotts happening in my head. Like it's a whole bunch. I'm like, I ain't buying none of your stuff. Don't please, celebrity, don't advertise to me because you done bought some overpriced item and you could have put like 50 community centers in a whole bunch of needed areas, right? Yeah. So I think that's one of the things that legislators should be able to fight. I don't know if there's some ethical issues about getting other folks to fund projects, but I think that's one of the things as people we need to stop doing is relying on government to give us money on certain things that we need because the money is in the community. We just need to get those folks that got it to be like, just go ahead and pay for this and go get your write-off from the federal government or whatever it is that you're going to do. But I think that's one of the things. Yes, I think we should fight as, legislators should fight and also have more creative ways of getting community centers. Because again, it's just some people that I just heard bought some very overpriced houses that they don't need that could have put in 200, maybe another 60 community centers in a whole bunch of underserved communities.
Yeah. And listen, and for the people who want to fight every issue, there's still a way for you to get money back to your district. If you want to be that voice that says, you know what, all of this crap is bad and I'm fighting on every issue here. But the reality, ladies, is that 85% of the bills that pass in our state legislature are bipartisan. We fight over 15% of the legislature.
It was some real bad ones. So that 15%
really bad. Those 15% be really bad.
They were choosing violence every time. Like
every which way they can find it. Everywhere, like he really came to this. Listen, in 2022, I said, you know what? After this session, things can't get any worse. There's not that much what we call red meat items for them to fight about. Mm-hmm. So going into 2023 session, it can't be that bad as 2022. Man, they said, let me show you something. They said, let me show you something. I'm picking a fight. I'm picking a fight with everybody.
There's no bottom to that pit, huh?
Yeah, I'm picking a fight with everybody.
We're
fighting with Mickey Mouse. We're fighting with Mickey Mouse. We're we're fighting with trans folks in the LGBT community. We are rejecting AP courses, which, by the way, folks, they're elective. It's an elective. CRT, by the way, is an elective in law school.
In law school,
it wasn't taught. It wasn't taught. It's not taught anywhere else.
Yeah, but law school.
So the ban on CRT is a misdirection.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say this before we leave. Worrying about, I'm not saying that we can't do two things at once. I'm not saying we can't walk and chew gum, but we do need to prioritize, right? So we're up in arms because CRT is not being taught. Let's remember that CRT is a theorized body of study. It is not Black history.
Mm-hmm.
In the state of Florida, from K through 12, Black history is mandatory to be taught. CRT is not even taught in undergrad school. In undergrad,
no,
and you say it louder for the people in the back. Say it louder for the people in the back.
Right. No, they don't care. They banning books they ain't read.
But because the governor did it, we're up in arms about it. Meanwhile, they passed this bill called the Parental Bill of Rights.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right.
That allows a parent and anybody in the community, a non-parent, anybody in the community can go in and challenge a book.
A book.
Not just a book in curriculum, but a book that's a resource in our school system. They can challenge it. And I honestly think that they didn't foresee the racial challenges that came.
Mm-hmm.
That were going to be a lot. I think they were targeting another community.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But that was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But then folks said, you know what? Those Black books, them Black authors, that's CRT.
Mm.
What? There's CRT here? Wait a minute. Let's take a look at this book.
And here's the thing.
They don't even know credit that they took a look at that book. They didn't look at that book.
But they don't even
look at that book. They didn't read page 1 of that book.
But what are they?
The people who challenge it.
The people
who are challenging it, they don't have to read it. They simply have to submit a challenge.
Yeah, they don't have to read it. Yeah, because the one who challenged Amanda Gorman's book, she admitted she like, I ain't even read the first page of that thing.
And my thing is that they keep complaining about CRT. They don't even know what it is. They can't give you a definition. They have no clue, right? But yet still you're gonna pull out a book and just look at it and say, oh yeah, that looks like that's CRT to me.
Because they're talking about race. They're talking about race.
Yeah.
Oh, that's CRT. They're talking about how race affected them. Oh, that's CRT.
That's CRT. That's all that is. I'm gonna need the Democratic Party in the Florida legislature to get some Justin Jones, Tennessee fever, some of that smoke. I'm gonna need y'all to come through like the youngins are coming through. Let me tell you something. And you know, these brothers have been on a consistent basis challenging everything. And I just think that we need that type of energy. I know that some of us are, you know, we have some concerns or whatever, but
we got to get that community center in the neighborhood, girl. What you mean?
I'm just needed, you know, I'm like Brother Johnson up here. Y'all need to figure out how we're going to galvanize everybody with this Justin Jones, that smoke that he bringing. Y'all need to bring that here too, because I'm telling you right now, all other states and all social media people are calling Florida the most racist state they've ever seen. They even topping us over Texas. Now that's a problem if we're coming in on over Texas. Yeah. So I mean, I know there's a few of y'all, but we need to huddle up or something. We need to huddle up or something. 2024 around the corner.
And I think Illinois just put something that you can't ban any books, right? The state of Illinois just passed a legislation that you cannot ban any books at all in the state.
But Illinois may be a blue state.
Yeah,
you know,
I don't know. What
we have become a deep purple. They would, you know, my colleagues on the other side would like to say that we're a red state. When you knock the dust off, we're a deep purple. We're still a deep purple state.
Yeah. We can go either way.
Yeah, in many
with
areas,
the right messaging.
And with the right messaging, it can still go either way. Now, redistricting is what deepened the purple in our state. Redistricting gave them some areas that they didn't have before.
We got to be willing to move. That's all. Like you can move. Like, that's another thing too. It's like Black people live everywhere. So like, why y'all can't just run in these places that you think you may not be able to run?
But listen, on the book reviews, the book banning, the way that the law is set up, that book reviews, the process by which you do a book review, and the outcome of those book reviews are handled by the district. So parents and community stakeholders have to now pay attention to what's going on at your school district. So yes, the state legislature promulgated the law, but the law is enacted and enforced pursuant to school district policies.
Okay.
So when we start seeing things that we don't like, it is incumbent upon us to go to our school district in droves and say, wait a minute, and to understand that the school district is responsible for creating the process by which the books are challenged.
Yeah.
We need to have input into that. They need to be having community meetings, and we need to be having input that we understand that there's a law now, and you got to, and until we can get the law overturned, y'all gonna have to do what y'all gonna have to do. But here's how y'all should be doing it.
So we in Broward County, and our Broward County School Board. Listen, the last meeting was like a classic case of critical race theory and intersectionality, and how Black women have all kind of problems that they're like they're being discriminated against in all different kind of ways. But they're like, oh no, of course not. There's somebody Black on the list. Like, what do you mean, right? So that was So Broward County, that school board. That's a different conversation. Maybe y'all got more chances in Miami-Dade County of having a process that's more suitable to keeping books in school. But I mean, Broward County.
Well, listen, there are the agency. We have our organizations that we have historically had. NAACP. I've been a long-standing member of the NAACP here in Miami-Dade County. I'm the legal redress chair. We have an education committee. We're going to be meeting next week to talk about how do we address the book challenging, and the fact how do we go to our school board and let them know what we expect to see with regards to challenging and the quality of challenges. We talked a lot about frivolous lawsuits when it comes to property insurance and things of that nature. We need to be talking about frivolous challenges when it comes to this. Is for me, this is the priority.
I agree.
I don't like that DEI is being taken out of the universities. I don't like that university tenure is being weakened. I think that when we begin to weaken university tenure of professors, that professors leave the state. When good professors leave the state, our rankings of our state universities drop. The quality of our student bodies drop because our students decide to go elsewhere. I mean, I was very disappointed to hear the governor tell future students that if you want a particular degree, go elsewhere.
Can you imagine? But that's what he did, though. He didn't go to school in Florida.
And we have great schools here.
We do. I'm a proud member of Gator Nation. Yes, we do have great schools here.
And a lot of Gators are afraid that this legislation will cause a dropping in rankings for the university.
And Bill Sass just became the president of the University of Florida. So there's a whole bunch of Gators like, how that happened? Yeah. Probably get sent from the state of Nebraska. What are you talking about? So yes. So there's
he's a walking contradiction, and it's quite abhorrent that he decided to run for president because his record here is trash.
Well, I mean, he think he gonna lose, so he got rid of resign and run. So he wants to be able to keep his governor job when he don't win. So he's planning on losing.
Or they have no faith in Lieutenant Governor.
Who is that? What's their name
Her
again?
name's Jeanette. She's a Cuban woman.
I don't even know who she was. I honestly didn't.
I forgot Jeanette's last name, but yeah, it's a Cuban American woman.
Okay, then.
So the last thing Brian said, and we're gonna end on this. He said the difference is the Republican Party is enthusiastic about pandering to its racist base, but the Democratic Party is preoccupied with trying to impress the mythical white middle and divided Hispanics. Black people are the most loyal constituency within the party, and the party must become blacker, or it will continue to lose enthusiasm to keep saving the party. And I don't know if he means blacker as in more black people or blacker in addressing more black issues. I'm not sure. But what do you think the Democratic Party can do?
Listen, the Democratic Party has become the big tent party, right? Mm-hmm. We have become the voice for every other group outside of the majority, outside of the ruling class, who feel disenfranchised, who feel marginalized, who feel discriminated against. We've become the voice for everyone. And that's going to have its challenges. That in itself is going to have its challenges, because we believe that somehow we believe that if you are marginalized, if you're discriminated against, that is the point of cohesion. That is the point in which we come together. And what we often see is that not every group still shares the same values. Not every group still has the same priorities and the same concerns. And at times, those interests become at odds with one another. You know, it is the mistake that we often make to believe that Black people are a monolith.
Right.
We have conservatives, we have moderates, you know, we have progressives, you know, because we have blacks from different walks of life. From the Caribbean. My parents are from the Caribbean.
Yeah, and we're very conservative. My parents are Haitian. I'm telling you, there's some of them conversations be like, "Mommy, you can't say that in public. I'm sorry. Like, please don't say that."
But they believe that. You know, we have the followers of W.E.B. Du Bois, and we have the followers of Booker T. Washington
and Garvey. Yep.
And Garvey. Yeah. You know, so we are a diverse people. Pan-African folks are a diverse group of folks in and of themselves. Then you add on to it, you know, Central America and Latin America, and you add on to it, you know, LGBTQ, which is an intersectionality that affects all the different groups, and then women issues, you know. So it is a lot of voices that are vying for attention within our party, and that is a tough thing to coordinate at times.
But we're going to do it, and we're going to make some serious changes in 2024 because we have to. And I think we have enough of a record for what the Republicans did in the last couple of years. So even though people were still trying to give them a chance in 22, they were wilding out this year. So I think just with the 15% of partisan bills that were passed, that should be enough in order for, I think, to kind of flip and get people to see, like, you know, folks aren't here.
Listen, we're making voting tougher.
Yes, that part.
I mean, not only last session,
registering people to vote tougher. The penalties to register people to vote is even tougher. Yeah, people. There's some organization that like we're not even doing it because it ain't even working.
Listen, the Qs. I'm a proud member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and we would do voter rights. Most of the BGLOs, we do something with regards to voter, you know, third party voter registration. I'm telling the bros, like,
don't do it.
On that note, I'm going to give you some dates real quick so we all could be on the same page and we all can go if we don't have an organization.
And remember, constitutional carry happens on July 1st.
Constitutional carry.
Permitless carry.
Permitless carry.
Permitless carry.
And that
we argue with these people in the street.
I should know better. I'm using their own talking points. Yes.
But
that's what they call it, constitutional carry.
That's what they call it.
It's permitless carry, people. Don't argue with these people for them parking spaces. Let them cut you off in traffic. Keep moving, act like you ain't see nothing, don't say nothing.
Think about it. You'll have permitless carry, which means more people carrying firearms in the public. Stand your ground here in the state of Florida.
Yep.
The regular just, they did it, you know, dead men tell no tales. So when the cops show up on the scene, I was just defending myself.
One side of the story. You see how they shot in Ocala just last week. I think they arrested a woman today, but in Ocala just last week, this woman shot through her door and killed this mom of 4 in front of 2 of her kids because she came in front of the door trying to talk to them. They said she was scared. Yeah, she said she was scared. Shot through the door and killed a woman. So July the 1st, don't be arguing with them people.
Well, you need to come back, Rep, to explain permitless carry because it's not what we all think it is. Because you can't just have your gun sitting on a chair in the car. You can't,
not like Tennessee, but the fact that you could just have it.
All the rules that we previously had still apply in permitless carry, except
and I think that needs to be reiterated because some people may not understand that.
Yeah, all the rules still apply.
Carry is like, you know, whatever.
I think it's Wild Wild West. I'm just listen. I'm not even gonna give nobody no eye contact. I'm not even gonna look you in the eyeball. I'm not gonna even look you in the eyeball. I'm just gonna act like I ain't seen nothing. I ain't arguing with you. It's good. We good.
You
me,
can have it.
me
all
and
you.
Shipped and Instacart gonna be better friends. Like,
They
I
already
ain't want
my-
nobody's
they already-
store.
They already my best buds.
You understand?
You
Like
understand
I be
what
like, y'all just give a
Black
little bit extra.
people, Black people, mind your business. Is not this ain't
Everybody mind your business. Everybody mind your business.
Everybody mind your business.
So October 2nd, 2024 is the last day you can register online to vote.
Yes.
That same day goes with you sending your registered to register to vote by mail. It has to be postmarked by October 2nd.
We need y'all to do that now. Do that right now.
That every election cycle you have to re-request ballot by mail.
Yep. So do that now, ASAP. Tomorrow, get online, register today,
right now.
Get online, register. We're gonna need every hand and every voice and every feet to just get to the ballot box, and we need you all to be coming up here and being strong about this. And
listen, you have to have a valid Florida ID in order to vote. We've been doing DMV pop-ups to make sure that people have a Florida ID.
Okay.
And even if you can't afford it, if you're indigent, the Florida IDs are then free.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that everybody who can get an ID gets an ID, because we want everybody who can vote to make sure that they get out and vote when it's time to vote.
Awesome. All right.
Wonderful.
Any parting words before you leave, Rep?
Yeah. Listen, stay woke.
There's a woke tour happening this state, right? Are you
that's right.
Are you part of that? I think
we're looking at them.
Yeah, we're looking at
a lot of events are going to be happening on July 1st, because that's when all the legislation goes into effect that we passed in this last session. So there are going to be a lot of rallies, there are going to be a lot of marches, a lot of demonstrations on July 1st, because there was a time that woke simply meant to be aware of what's going on in your community, be aware of the forces that are coming against you in your community, to be aware. And it's not a bad word, and it's not a bad thing. So in all things we do as it relates to government, you may say that you're not interested in government, but your government is interested in you.
Mm-hmm.
So stay woke.
Affecting your life.
Y'all stay woke.
So it's the Transformative Justice Coalition. They're having this rolling woke tour that's happening throughout the state of Florida. So check out their website, see if the dates match up with, this is for the people, if the dates match up for the city that you're in, and if you can go and be supportive and check it out, go ahead and check that out. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. Pleasure. I got a class to go teach because, I'm from the islands and I got like 4 jobs. So
we both are. So I got like 5 myself. I understand.
So I got to go to my next job. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
My pleasure, ladies. Anytime.
Have a good night, brother.
And you guys, if you all have any questions for the rep, please look up his information online. All these representatives.
We'll post it for you.
Yeah, I'm on all platforms at Rep C Benjamin.
At Rep C Benjamin. Yep. All right. These representatives are always open. They answer their emails. They
ain't all open. They ain't all that friendly. Listen, I'm telling you, they not. Ours are, but they're not all that friendly. They're not all that accessible, especially when they doing all that crazy stuff. But Rep Benjamin, thank you so much for taking this time out to come and speak with us. We truly appreciate that.
Absolutely.
My pleasure.
All right.
All right, everyone. We'll have a good evening, and we'll see you all next week.